Hello everyone, my name is Dark Hero and welcome back to Monster Hunter Wilds. Today I want to talk some more about the Radal Gama armor set, as I received a lot of questions about the video that I made, and on top of that there are some additional things that I didn't mention in the video that escaped me, that I didn't know at the time were added to the game as well, and I also want to go over some builds that are going to be utilizing the Radal Gama armor set and how to optimize them so that you can essentially take the same armor set with just about any weapon, and this mixed set, this build, would be perfect for any weapon you bring. So that is the goal with this video. So with that being said, hello everyone, my name is Dark Hero and let's get started. So the first thing I want to touch on is a point that many people brought up in my previous video about the Radal Gama set, and that is regarding the brand new set bonus that is called the Lord's Soul, the one that I believe is going to be shared across all the new Gama armor sets, that has essentially a buffed Guts passive. In the previous games, Guts simply would allow you to take a lethal hit, and instead of carting you would survive. The way it's implemented in Monster Hunter Wilds, it's actually much better, as on top of having that defensive benefit, while the skill Guts is active, aka before you take the lethal hit, you will gain a boost your attack, but lower your defense as a trade-off. Now the way that I tested this was by changing different weapons, but the ones that I tested with, a lot of people pointed out that the difference was of only 10 raw attack. Now I later also tested this with some weaker weapons, like for example a hammer with 90 attack, another one with 150 attack, and so on, and in those tests I was able to see a jump from 158 to 165, which would indicate to me that my estimation or my previous testing that this skill does not in fact give you a flat 10 attack, but it seems to give a 5%, around a 5% increase in attack, with the trade-off being that you lose 5 defense, and also as I showed in my previous video, after you lose the Guts passive, so once you take the lethal damage and you survive as a result of it, the skill essentially becomes inactive, so you lose the attack buff, but you now gain a 5% defense buff, and that is after removing the debuff you had before, and you also get 3 elemental resistance. But that said, gaining a flat 10 attack or a 5% increase to your attack is actually a huge benefit in Monster Hunter Wilds, as there really are very few sources of attack that you can get out of your armor pieces, especially not good ones. The Radal Gama armor set is frankly very efficient. Some of these pieces are just fantastic. You can effectively gain latent power level 5 by just combining the chest piece and the waist. And by the way, something that was added with Radal is that we now actually have a rarity 8 latent power charm that gives you latent power level 3, so you have that additional option if you want to max out latent power without having to rely on the Radal Gama chest piece, so you can go ahead and utilize the Numinous Shroud for example, and it would be a more efficient option. Another talisman that they have also added to the game, which is somewhat surprising, is the defense 5 charm, which I still don't think is worth going for, as defense boost really isn't a powerful skill in my opinion. You have much better defensive skills in the game, but hey, if your plan is to max out defense boost, then you can get 5 out of the 7 levels right away by using this talisman. But going back to the Radal Gama set and how I plan to optimize these builds, I guess the biggest question is this attack increase better than the 4-piece Gore Magala set that you can use? As in case you guys aren't aware, the 4-piece Gore Magala set bonus, Black Eclipse 2, is still the best option for flat out damage in this game. And the reason is quite simple. This armor set is frankly just very efficient. Now if you take a look at the pieces themselves, they don't offer a lot of fantastic skills. The Gore Magala's Tyranny. So Black Eclipse 1 makes it so that whenever you are afflicted with the Frenzy virus, you gain a 15% affinity. And of course, in case you are new, the Gore Magala 2-piece set bonus already infects you with Frenzy, and it becomes even easier with antivirus, and you already get 1 level of antivirus with the Greaves, and you can slot in the additional 2 levels in the 2 level 1 slots. And antivirus, on top of making it easier to overcome the Frenzy, also gives you a 10% additional affinity after you do so. Now the text states that it's 15% affinity, but this has been declared as a mistranslation for a long time in the community. But regardless, you're able to get 25% affinity right away with that 2-piece set bonus. But then you have the 4-piece set bonus, Black Eclipse 2. And this is where things get even more interesting, because the 4-piece set bonus makes it so that whenever you are afflicted with Frenzy, on top of that 25% affinity you get, you also get a flat 10 attack. And then when you overcome the Frenzy virus, which you can do very quickly, you gain an even additional 5 attack. And these attack numbers may not sound like a lot, but when you go over the best weapons in the game, like the Artian weapons, the Zoshio weapons, without the bloated values, you can see that these attack numbers timers actually make a huge difference on the damage output that you have with your weapon. And again, while the armor pieces themselves don't have any fantastic skills, because they give you so much affinity and so much attack right out of the gate, it's very much worth it to go for the 4-piece set bonus and go for something like this, which is a meta build that I've shown in my previous video, where you just take the 4-piece set bonus for Gore Magala with a different chest piece, in this case the Zoshio one because it's just so efficient, and you're able to slot in enough skills that you're able to get a lot of affinity. And as you can see, I was even able to slot in 1 level of burst, which, as I've been talking about since pretty much the first day of the game being out, is one of the best skills to always put 1 point into your builds, and Coalescence 1 to also get additional damage. So going back to what I was saying before all of this explanation, which one is better to use? The new Radal Gama set with the Lord's Soul or the 4-piece Gore Magala? If you are purely seeking to deal as much damage as possible, while also having a lot of reliance on weapons that typically don't rely on having additional skills to deal damage, and especially weapons that are able to utilize maximum might, then the Gore Magala 4-piece set bonus is going to come out on top, as again you're able to slot in just enough skills to get a decent amount of affinity, not quite enough affinity to the point where I'm comfortable with it, so if you get unlucky you may just end up doing less damage, and you certainly will not have room to add any quality of life skills on top, so that is where a lot of weapons where they need certain skills, they would be at a disadvantage with a 4-piece Gore Magala set, so that is something to take into consideration. On the other side of the argument, the Gamma armor set with the Lord's Soul set bonus is going to be better for pretty much every other scenario. So while you are going to be getting slightly less raw attack, you're going to have a lot more affinity right off the bat, as again latent power is a crazy skill that gives you 50% affinity, and it's very easy to proc latent power, as I explained before, especially if you use the corrupted mental, which is going to shorten the activation period for about a minute. So if you just take any damage at all, you get hit once, maybe twice, latent power is going to be active all of the time. But the best part about the Gamma armor set, in my opinion, on top of having the additional safety that Guts provides you by saving you from 1 lethal hit, is the huge amount of quality of life skills that you're able to add to your build. So this is where I'm going to be taking you through a couple of different builds that I have made to try to optimize my Radal Gama armor set for different weapons, so that you can take these and pretty much work with them for any weapon you have, and you're still going to be very competitive. The damage difference between this and the 4-piece Gore Magala set is going to be minor, but in fact you may actually come out on top because of the additional quality of life skills that you're going to be having. So the first set that I have for you is quite simple. I'm using the longsword here as an example, but it could be any other weapon. We're utilizing the Radal Gama helmet, chest piece, and a coil with the Guardian Arc Veld Vambraces, the Mizutsune Greaves, and the Counter Strike Charm. As you can see, we don't get a lot of decoration slots, but the skills that you get are already quite powerful by themselves, and you're able to slot in quality of life skills that are going to make your life easier. So with latent power, weakness exploit level 3, and maximum might level 3, we end up with 95% affinity. So it's pretty fantastic. It's almost perfect affinity. We're not going over the cap, and we're able to add things like Counter Strike, which is going to give you a massive 25 attack boost while it is active. And in case you aren't aware, Counter Strike is one of the best skills in the game, as you are able to activate it not only when you are hit by a monster and you are sent flying, but also whenever you do a focus strike against a monster attack that would actually make you knock back. Because the focus strikes have iframes, you're able to utilize that, and you will trigger Counter Strike and get that massive attack boost. We also get burst level 2, which is going to give you a lot of additional damage, and we get it from the Mizutsune Greaves that are going to be very helpful. And I also utilize these level 3 decoration slots to add Adrenaline Rush level 2. That is going to give you even more attack after perfectly dodging an attack, and for the longsword it actually works with the Foresight Slash, and I believe the EI Slash as well, so that is fantastic. And of course for the level 1 slot you can go for Divine Blessing level 3, the best defensive skill in the entire game, giving you a chance to reduce the damage that you take by 50%, which is just incredible. But of course if you're playing longsword you may want to go for Quick Sheath level 3 to be able to perform those EI slashes a lot more consistently. And for the final decoration slot, just go with anything you prefer, though Shockproof is going to be the #1 recommendation if you are playing in multiplayer. But honestly, you can take this very setup for something like a Sword and Shield for example, and instead of Adrenaline Rush you add more levels of burst, and of course you add back the Divine Blessing, and this is going to work wonders on just about any weapon. Or you could go for something like this instead, where instead of using the Radal Gama chest piece you go for the Zoshia chest piece, but go with the Radal Gama Vambraces that give you Evade Extender 2, a fantastic quality of life skill that is pretty much a necessity if you're playing something like a Switch Axe, and you still keep the Radal Gama Coil, the Mizutsune Greaves, and you use the aforementioned Latent Power 3 charm. This would ultimately give you Agitator level 5 that is going to give you 20 attack on top of 15% affinity whenever it is active, so when you combine that affinity with Latent Power 5, Maximum Might 3, and Weakness Exploit 1, you would effectively end up with 100% affinity without taking into account the additional 3% affinity when you hit a monster's wounds. You also get Burst level 4 to get a lot of additional damage, and again you have Evade Extender 2 and Stamina Surge 1 that is going to pretty much allow you to dodge any kind of incoming attacks. Although alternatively, a very good option to go for your Greaves would also be the Zoshia Greaves, as they would give you Counter Strike level 1, Recovery Speed level 1, and Elemental Absorption level 1. You would also get the Super Recovery level 1 set bonus from Zoshia that is going to give you passive healing, so very good quality of life right there, and you can use the 2 decoration slots to add Counter Strike to get Counter Strike level 3 to again get that additional attack. And lastly, this is the build that I showed you on my previous video, though I don't think it's quite as good as the previous ones. This is a mix of the Gore Magala 2-piece set bonus Black Eclipse 1 with the 3-piece Radal Gama set, but the problem with this one is that you're going to be overcapped on your affinity very easily, since when you combine all of these skills, you effectively have 125 affinity without even taking into account the additional 15% affinity you would have whenever you hit a wound. So if you want to use the skill Master's Touch with a weapon that imagine has no sharpness boost whatsoever, and you want to never run out of white sharpness, this is something you can do. But honestly, I do believe that the other builds are going to be performing better. But these are some of the more efficient sets that I've been able to create with the Radal Gama armor set. As I said, I'm overall very happy with the performance of this set. Very comparable to the 4-piece Gore Magala, but with a lot more options. And of course, it's only going to be getting better with time, as the Lord Soul set bonus can be combined with any Gama armor set, or at least I'm expecting that to be the case. So we have some very good things to look forward to. Also, I want to briefly mention Arc Tempered Radal. I think it was a bit of a missed opportunity for Capcom to make the event quest be a 3 strength Arc Tempered Radal instead of a 5 strength. Overall, I'm not happy with the strength system that we have in the game. I think it's pretty pointless, and it just leads to people complaining about difficulty more than they already have been doing. But I'm just pretty tired of that discussion altogether. I had a fun time with Arc Tempered Radal, but I wish it was 5 strength from the get-go. With that being said, let me know if you guys have any different builds that utilize the Radal Gama set. I will be pinning some comments if I see some good builds in there, so let's try to share as many as we can as we theory craft and try to come up with some fun builds. With that being said, my name is Dark Hero, thank you all so much for being here, and as always, happy hunting!